and welcome back to another video. As you can see, I am stood up, which is very rare for my videos. I don't tend to do that very often. But for this video, I'm thinking of doing some of my acrylic pouring. If you follow me over on Instagram at LucyLogsArt, you will know that I do a lot of acrylic pouring and I sell a lot of my acrylic pours. And I never really film it for YouTube and I'm not really sure why. So if you do enjoy this video, please hit that thumbs up and leave a comment down below if you want to see more of these videos. But to cut a long story short, I basically have a stall coming up. Our lockdown rules here in the UK were pushed a month until full lockdown is lifted, which has basically cancelled a few of my plans that I'd planned for rugby, and so I had a spare weekend that the Kirkstall Abbey stalls, which I recently have just done one at, has opened up a slot where I can do that stall. So I thought I would accept that, and since it's so close to me doing my last stall, I have to stock up a few coasters. Now I have a week to do this and I'm not sure it's long enough because the heatproof varnish that I put on the coasters after I've poured may not cure in time, but we can but try, and I thought I would show you my process and my mix that I've developed via research on other people's acrylic pours, etc. And kind of show you how I do it, how I go about doing the coasters, and just bring you along on this process, and we can pour a set of coasters together and see how that goes. So I'm very excited about it. So first off, I thought I would tell you a little bit about the paints that I use. So I use a medium to heavy body paint because it tends to last a little bit longer and stretch a little bit further in terms of the mixes. So I have been using the Abstract Acrylics by Sennelier, which are these little pouches here. I have some B-roll which I'll probably put over this little segment of talking. These are very good. They are thick, they stretch very far. The pouches here in the UK, Hobbycraft seems to do sales on these pouches all the time, so you can get £2 a pouch, and they're just generally pretty good. In terms of metallics, I have a metallic set of theirs which has gold, copper and silver in there. I don't really rate their metallics in these Sennelier paints, and so I tend to go and get these Pebeo Studio Acrylics, which tend to have really nice metallic colours. So I love using copper in my work, so I have this iridescent, which I'm running a little bit out of. I have silver. I don't have gold at the moment. I think I must have used that up. But they tend to be very good. So if you can't get the Sennelier, I recommend the Pebeo Studio Acrylics, or even some De La Roni acrylics. I have this. I need to get it in white as well, but this Graduate acrylic's also very good. Any acrylic paint tends to be really good. You could use crafting acrylics, all sorts really. I don't think there's any wrong acrylic to use. And then for my pouring medium, I have used pouring medium, but it can be quite pricey if you're not making enough money from these. So I did research and found out that you can use Floetrol, which is a painter and decorator type mix that they mix with wall paint, and it makes it stretch further, and it conditions the paint basically, and it's very good. And you can get this, I believe it's cheaper over in America, but here in the UK you can get this on Amazon. It can set you back, I think, about 30 quid for a big pot. You can get smaller pots as well. I'll leave some links in the description below to where I tend to get these products from. But this big one here, I think this was £30, but you can get them, you know, in offers and things like that, and it lasts a long time. You just got to make sure you shake it very thoroughly because it can have little blobs of stuff in there. Some people sieve it. I don't really take the time to do that, but I probably should. But it's very good, very nice. In terms of silicone oil, I just buy this Pebeo stuff. I can get it from Hobbycraft. I'm sure you can get big bottles of silicone oil for a lot cheaper, but I don't pour as often anymore because I have so much stock to sell. Maybe when I've sold all that stock I'll be able to pour a lot more, but this Pebeo silicone oil is very good. I've seen some people use silicone sprays and stuff that you use for lubricants, but they can discolour the paint a little bit, so you've just got to be careful what you're using. Then for my heat aspect, to bring those cells out from the silicone oil, you can use a little kitchen one, but I have this big one which is just is it butane? Yeah, butane tank that I attach this top to, and it is a bit of a blowtorch. But yes, a little kitchen gadget type one would do just perfectly fine. I thought that's what I was buying when I bought that one, and turns out it wasn't, it was a lot bigger. And then for the mix as well, I tend to just use some tap water, so I fill up a big bottle and have that up here all the time. It's good for just general painting really, because I'm on the 3rd floor of my house and the bathroom is downstairs, and sometimes you just don't want to walk down there, as lazy as that sounds. And then for doing the actual stuff, I highly recommend a lot of kitchen roll, baby wipes, things to keep your hands clean. A lot of people use gloves. I don't tend to like gloves because I've got really small hands and the gloves don't fit on my hands very well. And then lastly, the main thing you're going to need are cups. Ideally silicone cups so that you can reuse them. I get plastic ones, but I reuse them anyway, obviously just to a point. But for the coasters, I like to get little shot cups. So from our local supermarket, you can get these little packs of red, I believe Americans call them solo cups, but you can get little red shot cups, which are really handy because I have one of these per coaster and I can just fill them up, you know, equally and everything. And I have, this is not even half of what I have. I have a lot of them, and they're just really handy. So in terms of my coasters, you can buy plain ceramic coasters, wooden coasters, whatever you want to use. Ceramic is probably for the best because it won't absorb the paint, but you can buy plain coasters. Just recently I bought some hexagon and some circular plain coasters that actually you're meant to use with your Cricut as, what's it called? Sublimation, I think it's called. But they can run a little bit pricey because they are supposed to be coasters. I have found for square in particular, I think you can do it with hexagons as well, but it's hard because they come in kind of a mesh together sort of thing, so you can lay them out equally. But anyway, besides the point, for square, I have actually found my local hardware store, B&Q here in the UK, sell packs of kind of their B&Q range sets of tiles, wall tiles. They are glazed ceramic wall tiles, 10 centimetre by 10 centimetres, and you can get them in a multitude of colours. I tend to go for white and black depending on what colour I'm pouring on. So if it's got a black base, I'll use the black coasters, etc. And they are just a standard tile. Why do I keep saying coasters? They are just a standard tile. Let me show you one that's not backed. Hold on. I'm way more prepared for this than usual, so that makes a change. Okay, so unbacked, it kind of looks like this. It's just a standard ceramic glazed tile that you would tile your walls with. And I found these are just the best things to use. You can pour on them, it sticks, varnish on them, add some little pads, and Bob's your uncle, you've got a coaster. So I tend to use that. I think it's just a cheaper way of doing it. So I highly recommend, if you're going to do this, have a look in your hardware store for some wall tiles if you're going to do square coasters. Like I say, hexagon you can do that with as well, but it's a little bit more difficult, and circular you don't tend to find circular wall tiles for this size, so you may have to buy some actual coasters for that. But this is how I do it. I then back them with some masking tape. That's just to protect the back so that they don't get all dirty with paint. Sometimes it's inevitable and it happens, you can try and sand it off, but I also think it adds to the charm if there's a little bit of paint on the back there. It just shows that it's handmade, but I do try and avoid it where I can. So I do need to back some more of these coasters, but I have a nice set already backed, which is handy for this video. And that's it. We will go into a close-up over here and I will show you my mixes, and we can get on with doing some pouring for this video. Okay, so for this set of coasters, I'm thinking for the colour combination, I'm going to do a silver, a, what's this called? Navy blue, a navy blue, a tealy turquoise, and this kind of like mid-tone blue here, and then white just to anchor the whole lot in there. It's quite a lot of colours for a coaster, but I think in moderation that should be okay. I'm going to mix up a big batch over here because, like I say, I've got quite a lot of coasters to make, so a bit of all these colours will be great, but obviously we're not even intending to fill these up, just probably about halfway. But I do need a big batch of white, so we're going to start off with putting the colours in here. So like I say, a big batch of white, so we want a good amount of white in there. I'm not going to tell you exact proportions because it just varies depending on how much paint I need, etc. I'm going to tell you the consistency that I like to achieve, and then you can play around with that as much as you like, basically. So a little bit of silver in here. And then I actually don't have much of this tealy colour left, but it's quite a popular colour, you see. I think I might actually mix up all of this. Probably a good way to go about it. Let's go. Now I have a question in terms of these colours, so that you're not just listening to silence. This is called turquoise on here. Now I think that's turquoise, I don't dispute that. A lot of people kind of say this is a teal colour. Now, I don't know, I feel like it's a little more blue to be teal. I think it needs a touch of green in there to be teal. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah, I just feel like it needs to be probably more teal than anything. I don't know if we can get any more of this out. What did I just say? It needs to be more teal than anything. It needs to be more... I don't know what I just said. Anyway, what I meant is it needs to be more blue. I don't know if I said that or not, but that's what I meant. Annoyingly, these are great, these pouches, because you can scrape it all out, but in this bit here, I tend to find it's backlogged. Okay, that was a lot more paint than I expected, so that's a big batch of that colour, I'm assuming. Yes, so like I say, I'm not going to tell you quantities. It just honestly varies, and you're just going to have to experiment. It took me a while to experiment, and I don't even think I've cracked the amount of paint to pouring medium quantities that you need. It's a fine art to get it right, but equally, if you don't get it completely right, it tends to be fine, if you know what I mean. I think it just depends on the consistencies you like to work with. Some people prefer a runnier paint, some people prefer a thicker paint. I like a bit of a mid paint. I like it a bit heavier. Depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing a swipe, I prefer a bit of a runnier paint. But anyway, I'm going to add a little bit of water to these just to thin them out a touch. Like I say, a crafting paint works really well with this because it's kind of a thinner paint. But I'm actually going to add a lot more white because I think I'm going to use a hell of a lot more of that. Just really fill that up. Might be a bit too much for that cup actually, I might have to split it. But I think that's about right. I tend to mix this up and then find out I want more water in there, but just in terms of thinning this paint out for the first part, I think it's good. So basically, I then mix these up and then we'll move on to the Floetrol part, but I will speed this bit up. So I have kind of created this more creamy texture. I don't know if you can see that that's a bit more creamy. It kind of doesn't run off. I did a bit too runny on this one, but it shouldn't matter. I should be adding more anyway because the Floetrol is quite thick. I then, in terms of quantity, I don't really know. I basically just add quite a bit, so probably about that much. Like I say, disclaimer, I'll probably put something at the start of the vinegar. Oh my gosh. At the start of the video, I'll probably put a disclaimer anyway, but just as a disclaimer for now as well, is I'm not an acrylic pouring expert. Like, go and watch Smart Art, Olga Sobey over at Smart Art, or other YouTubers for really accurate advice and help in terms of quantities. I'm just showing you what mine is, what my process is, and it just so happens that I kind of just make it up, and I feel like that's the best way of doing it. But yeah, that's basically what I do. It might be too much to some people, too little to others, I don't know. This is just my quantities and process, and I just thought I'd bring you along for this journey. I'm going to add a little bit less Floetrol to these smaller quantities here because I don't need too much. A bit more to that one because there's a bit more paint in there. Like I say, I just judge it to how much paint I actually end up having in these pots. But yes, the white, I go through a lot of white when I do these pours, and like I say, I'm intending to do a big batch of pouring. But anyway, I'm going to mix these up and then we'll come back. You'll see in this time lapse that I might add a little bit more water, and then I'll show you the consistency I like to achieve by balancing that Floetrol and water at the end. Mixed up. As you can see, it's very much a process of mix, test, add water, mix, test, add water. Sometimes I've found that I've had to add more Floetrol if I've accidentally added too much water. But yes, I think I've actually made far too much paint. I want to do a lot of coasters, but not all the same flaming colour. But anyway, I'm sure I will use it. Maybe do some more, I don't know, some more whatchamacallits, canvases. But yes, this is the consistency I'm looking for. I'm going to bring you in so you can see kind of what I'm talking about. Hold on. Right, let me show you with this white, I think. So basically you want it to be runny enough that when you pull this up, it's going to run off. And can you see that little doming that you see on top of the paint? You want that, and you want it to run off and then bounce. You see that bouncing? So running off, doming, and a bounce. That's what I tend to look for, and that's from researching other people that do pouring. I think I saw a video that showed you how to do that. It's probably like a how to mix your paints or something like that. So that's what we're looking for. Now, I'm unsure whether I want to do a flip cup dirty pour, or I want to just pour a little bit of each of these colours on top of the coaster and blow it out to kind of create a bit of a bloom, is what I think it's called. I think we're going to do a flip cup just because I think it's going to be quicker. But before we get onto that, I want to add some silicone. So now, as you've seen, I've got 2 cups of white. I'm going to add silicone to one of them, and one of them I'm going to leave unsiliconed. What's the phrase? I don't know. Because I want a batch of white that will sell when I mix it into a dirty pour. I want a batch of white that will be my base when I'm doing the pours on top of the coasters. And then I'm going to add a few drops to all the rest. And because I've got so much of this paint, some of these I'm going to add more than 1 drop. So for this one, I'm going to probably add a few drops to all of these. And then to this white, I'm going to add a fair amount because I need to remember that the black rim is the siliconed white. So I'm just going to move some of this out of the way because I'm on my desk. I'm not over at my pouring station, that's what I like to call it. And I need to probably move this over to that after this video's finished filming this segment. But for that, I'm going to just mix that up. I'm not going to use that spatula I was using because it keeps getting stuck in the grooves. I'm going to use this, I don't know where I've got this from, but a plastic popsicle stick. So let's mix that silicone in. You've got to make sure it's mixed all the way through, otherwise you probably won't get much selling for it really. As you can see, just from doing that little bit, it's selling on top of this, which is quite nice, so you know that's going to work nicely. Like I say, some people use kind of like a silicone spray, etc., which is used for lubricants, which will work, but I think it will discolour, and with certain colours like these dark colours it probably won't matter, but for the colours like the white it definitely will matter, so just be aware of that if you decide to go down that route. But like I say, a lot, oh, shaking, sorry about that. I'll pick these up to mix. As you can see, acrylic pouring is a lot of trial and error with your paint mix, and that's predominantly the biggest part of the pouring process. The fun part of actually pouring tends to be only a small percentage of your process when doing these acrylic pours. So if you're looking to do a lot, I suggest doing a big mix like I've done, but again, I suggest practicing first because you don't want to do a big mix. I've actually done that in the past. I've done a big mix of paint and it's not been the right consistency, and I've not been able to pull it back quite the same. Another thing to know is when I first started off, I used a pouring medium because I just thought it was probably the best thing to use, but obviously that ran quite expensive after a while. So after I finished that pouring medium, I actually researched into a cheaper alternative, and of course this Floetrol is the best cheaper alternative. But if you are wanting to just trial and error, doing these mixes, etc., I suggest using PVA glue. Now, I used PVA glue for the longest time. I actually found it quite a nice thing. I never sold anything that I used my PVA glue for, but it was great for practicing. I've got a lot of canvases kind of in the corner of my room where I use the PVA glue, and it's just to practice, and I've given things to family because it's not obviously a high quality or a high standard to sell, but it was great, like I say, to practice on and to find out the mixes you want to do, etc. It's just a good way of doing that, really. So on to the pouring. I'm gonna just apologise now, this is going to be quite a lengthy video, so I do apologise about that, but I just thought I would share a bit more of what I'm doing behind the scenes sort of thing that's not in the vlogs. So I want to do the flip cup, but I'm going to need some cups to put the coasters on. So I'm doing a set of 6 here. Usually I do what 4 can't count. Usually I do 4, but I've had a few requests from people at stalls to do sets of 6. If you've got a bigger family, I guess that makes sense. So we're going to do 6 today. I've backed all of them nice and clean, so hopefully we shouldn't get too much on the back there, but like I say, it shouldn't matter if it does because it just adds a little bit of charm. Then we're going to place these on here, and next I'm just going to pour some white, the white that doesn't have the silicone in. I'm going to pour that on the back, and that's just going to be our white base basically. So I'm going to speed that up so you can see that process of me covering them. Okie dokie, so I've covered the coasters in the white. I've made sure to get around the edges as much as possible. It's just because it helps the paint flow off a little bit. So with my little shot glassy cup things, I'm going to fill these up with the desired paint that I would like. So I'm thinking of going a base of white in them all, and then a little bit of the dark blue so that hopefully the white kind of dilutes that a little bit of the mid blue, then the tealy colour, a bit of, I might go silver in between the mid blue and the teal, then white, and rinse and repeat until I probably have about 2/3 of this cup filled. So I'm going to speed that up again because it's quite a long process, and then I'm gonna show you how I pour the first one, and then I'll speed up the next part as well. So that is the amount. I've actually probably filled up a couple of them a little bit too much. I only ended up doing 1 pour of each colour and then 2 pours of the white because the paint feels a little bit thicker than I would like it. So for the next batch of whatever I use these paints for, I'm going to add just a touch more water, but you get to know the feeling of all the paints and everything. So I'll show you how I flip these over. So a dirty pour is what I'm aiming for here, which is also known as a flip cup. So as the name suggests, we literally flip these cups upside down. So we're going to do these one at a time. So it's literally as quick as you can. Flip, flip, flip. Sometimes it comes out, it's okay. They're all meant to be a bit unique. Flip that over, like that. So I tend to just tap these down to get some of that paint from the bottom of the cup out. But as you can see, it's already selling on these ones. So this is going to be a bit more of a covered cup. A covered, what they call placemats, what they call coasters, that's it. Now I'm having a bit of a mind blank today. They're going to be a bit more of a covered one. Like I mentioned earlier, a bloom would be, I'd cover it in white like this, and I would literally drop a little bit of the paint in the center there, cover that bit in white, then blow that paint, and that will become a bloom. So that's a little bit different for that one, but this is a bit more of a covered cup. So let's do the first one here. So I'm going to, oh, it's suctioned on. Oh dear. I'm going to just bring that out like that. So the inside of the cup's always beautiful after you've done that. I think it really shows what you want the coaster to look like. But as you can see, it's quite a lot of paint there. It's probably a little bit too much, I would say, but I'm just going to allow that to flow off the coaster like this. Very nice, very nice. I'm actually going to leave that corner there, and what we are going to do, just wipe my hands off. This is why it's very important to have something to wipe your hands off at all times next to you. I'm actually going to just fire up the blowtorch, and we're just going to bring some of those cells out. But firstly, I'm going to blow this part here just into that white little bit. Like that. I didn't want to pour any more paint off there, so sometimes that's a better option. And then we're just going to fire up this blowtorch and just lightly kiss it. As you can see, I'll bring you in for a close-up on the next coaster so you can see the cells popping, but it just pops some of the air bubbles in the paint, and it also just brings some of that silicone to the surface. So just lightly kiss that like that, and then that will continue to develop and sell and produce a nice looking coaster. If you want to pour a little bit off because you think there's too much of one colour on there, you can go ahead and do that. It should be flowy enough just to allow you to do that, like so, and then that just brings another element of the cells and the coaster to life a little bit, I find. And then if you go around the edge and you notice that sometimes the paint's not covering the edge, you can dab a little bit of that paint over and it should start flowing over the edge. It's just a really good way of doing that and covering all areas of the coaster so that you get a really nice finish in the end. So I'm going to continue to do these quickly, and I'll bring you in for a close-up when I do the selling at the end. And there is a finished pour. So I'm really pleased with these. I think they've turned out really nice. There's a really nice variation. This one's got way more of the navy in than say this one. The selling's really nice. You've got like a multiple cell in there, so you've got various colours within that cell. It's very nice. It's not selled quite as much as I thought it would. Maybe a bit more silicone needed in the paint, I don't know, but like I say, it is just an experiment. There is a lot of paint underneath here, which is fine. Sometimes you want a bit of excess paint just to allow it to run off and spread and mix and do all the different things. So I'll bring you in for a close-up, move these out of the way, and I'll show you what I've done, I do with the excess paint next. So they are over on my little drying area that I've made. They may not look quite how you last saw them on the video because depending on where you put them, you may have a slight slope and some of the paint will start running off in that direction, etc. But what to do is every so often just go along and maybe just swipe up some of the drips. It shouldn't matter if you've got masking tape on there, you can cut those drips off anyway, but it can just help with the end process. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you them dried, just because I'm filming this on Sunday and this is going up tomorrow, so I may not have time to show you because they may not be dry yet. But if you follow me on Instagram, like I said, at LucyLocksArt, you will see a photo of the end product at some point, so just maybe go and follow me on there if you want to see it. So as you can see, this is the leftover paint. I've just scraped it all in so it's a bit more in the centre, and this is what I love to do with this. This still has a bit of silicone in it, it's celled a little bit itself, it's got a lovely mix of colours, and when I find a mix of colours that I really like, my favourite thing to do is dip. So if you're here in the UK, the Works has these A5, I think they are? A5? Yeah, A5 canvas boards that you can get 6-pack for £2. I know loads of places do them and you can just get loads for a small amount of money. And all I like to do is flip these over and dip them in there, and you will get some lovely patterns on there, maybe some selling, all sorts of stuff. But basically I like to do that, and that's what I'm going to do. Maybe just the one canvas, I think. Yeah, just one. And then when I do another pour over this, it might introduce some new colours, and that might be a really interesting pour as well. But it's just a really nice thing to do, and like I say, you can get quite a lot of these A5 boards for cheap, and then I just sell these just for a discount price, quite a low price, just to kind of use up the paint so I'm not wasting all of this paint, and create some new nice interesting patterns and colours. So let's get into dipping. I suggest holding by the corners because you don't want to get too much on the back here, but I tend to just kind of find where I want to dip it, where the most amount of paint is, probably about here. Just plop it on like that. You want to press down to squidge that paint so it reaches all corners of your canvas, and make sure that if your canvas might be a bit bowed, it could sometimes affect that. And then literally just make sure that that corner's got on there. Then literally just pull it up. Like I say, sometimes it can suction on because of the paint. And then this is the result. So as you can see, it's really pretty. There's a lot of selling in there. Oh, it's just a beautiful colour combination, this. I really like it. I'm just going to add a little bit of paint here, and that will all blend it in. And there you have it. That is the finished kind of dip. I might actually do a second one, so let's do that now actually whilst I've got you on here. Where am I going to plop this? I don't want to get any paint on it. Let's plop it on top of here. Okay, yeah, and then let's do one more, just because there's quite a lot of paint and we can probably get another dip in there. I'm actually just going to scrape some of that into the centre here, just to make sure we have plenty of paint in there. Create some different patterns and textures, and then plop that on, squidge it out the sides, make sure all of that is covered like that. I think that's probably good enough, and then lift it. Sometimes you might want to double dip it if you've not quite covered it, but there you go, another nice colour combination there. And I just think it's a really nice way of using some of the paint up. Again, you could probably do another three in there, do a whole set of the canvas boards, but I don't want to have too many of the same colours. But that's basically it. So I'm going to just put these to one side, and then we'll finish off the video. And there we have it. I've put my hair up because I know I will dip my hair into the paint, something I would definitely do. But I think that went really well. I like the colours that we've got. They're looking quite good after a couple of minutes sitting there. They're not dripping too much, so hopefully we won't get too much of that runoff. All I will say is, when you put a lot of paint on there, you want to kind of get as much of it off as possible. You don't want to have a really thick layer of the paint because that can crack, which is obviously not a good look for the pours. But they look good. I like the colours. Everything's gone how I wanted it to. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've enjoyed kind of seeing what my processes are. Like I say, I'm not an expert, so you might want to do some experimenting yourself. But if you've enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you want to see more, and maybe what colours you'd like to see on some coasters next time. That would be great. I might film a spare video just in case you all enjoy it, and then I've got another video to put up. So I will show you that next time if you want to see it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.